Hey everybody, as Al Swearingen would say, some shit's best walked through alone, but not podcasting about Deadwood. That's why I am here with you. Clay, how are you?
I'm good. I was wondering how long you will wait, if you haven't crossed this road already, of asking your son, or saying to your son, that's a guilty, skulking fucking look on your features, son, anytime he walks into the room. Looking less than honest.
Yeah, minus the F word. I think that's something that you could say daily to these kids. That's a skulking look about them. Although choking them above the bar seems a little bit far gone at this point. Maybe when they get older and they tell me to go fuck myself. We are here to talk about a two-headed beast. This is the Something Pretty podcast. Clay, how have you been? I feel like we haven't recorded Deadwood in 2 weeks or so, it feels like at this point, but we're back into it. How have you been?
Good. I actually did not skip the reminder previously on for this episode.
I didn't either. Yeah, I needed it.
I couldn't exactly remember where we were.
Yeah, I needed it as well. And someone actually joined on Discord to say, where the fuck is the latest episode? Because I haven't gotten around to it. So people are listening to the podcast, which is nice.
We got one,
and I will put the episodes out. I was going to complain about it at the end of the series, but the thing that I'll most be happy about finishing this podcast with is the editing of the clips, because I despise it. And
it takes so long.
It takes a very long time. So I'm glad we're only doing it for a limited run series, and there's only a couple more episodes to go, but it's just something I really despise. But anyway,
I feel like you can see our how long we've been doing this for. If you go back and you kind of listen to the different shows that we've done and see how more and more streamlined the production and presentation gets over the years. Because I feel like we started off with, we got music, we got clips, we got specialized images and shit.
We got guests.
We got guests. We got 300-word write-ups that go in everything, and now it's just like same picture for every clip, same picture for every episode on the thumbnail, same background,
no clips,
same music, if we have music at all.
I just can't do excessive editing at this point. I don't have an editor's mind. I don't think I can't do it for video and I can't do it for audio. It just feels like it's something that takes forever to do. But I couldn't imagine editing like a really high production value podcast. And my justification is that I don't think it makes too much of a difference, really. Like, even if the highest produced podcasts were just, a quick intro and then the people talking in it, I really wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't be like, where's all the sound effects and stuff like that? I miss all that stuff.
The one that has always driven me fucking insane, I think it's Radio Lab.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one where when they're telling a story, they cut together clips of like 15 different people telling the story, and they jump.
Oh, they stack them on top of each other.
Yeah, sometimes by the word. So it'll be like one person says, I looked up, and then the next person will say, and I saw the plane coming from the other side of the next person. Down the street, it looked like it was coming right at us. And I'm like, dude, this is fucking brutal for me to listen to, and absolutely must be brutal for whoever has to put it together.
Yeah, I question whether or not it's worth it. But this is a show that needs clips, unfortunately, so I have to put in the clips because we don't do a good enough job of writing down what they actually say, and it's nice to hear them say it too. So,
just in case anybody was wondering, I was describing 9/11.
We're right off the anniversary. It's clearly fresh. It's
on everybody's mind.
Fresh on your mind. Yep. This is a two-headed beast. This is the Something Pretty podcast, and we are going to take a break. We'll play our little clip of music, and then we're going to come back and play more clips and ourselves talking over it.
You're listening to a podcast that is a lie agreed upon. Join Wes and Clay as they discuss HBO's Deadwood and tell you something pretty.
This is episode 5 of season 3 of Deadwood. It's called A Two-Headed Beast, directed by Daniel Minahan, written by David Milch. In this one, at the bank, Alma guides Merrick towards a positive story about the venture. The Cornish miner Pascoe is dumped in the thoroughfare, a knife protruding from his chest. The murder enrages Bullock. Hostetler receives payment for his livery and demands the board on which he can... That's kind of weirdly written. Hostetler receives payment for his livery, and Steve demands the board on which he confessed horse fucking. Swearingen thinks he understands Hearst's plans, but not his motive. He tells Dority he can fight Turner. They fight. Turner is killed. Alma takes her evening draft of laudanum. She caresses Ellsworth's head and kisses him. He sees her intoxication and leaves. Hostetler and the nigger general find the board has been erased. Hostetler finds a shotgun and kills himself. Burns asks Swearingen to look in on Dority. Al says some shit's best walked through alone. Hearst drinks at the Bella Union alone. He tells Bullock to fuck himself. Bullock arrests Hearst and pulls him by the ear through the thoroughfare. This is it, a two-headed beast, Clay, which some of the patrons, we don't have to get right into it, but they were very anxious to see what you... maybe not patrons, what you thought of the Turner fight with Dan Dority, which is a kind of important moment in the show, something that's remarked upon in the Deadwood Bible. Woody Harrelson says that it's his favorite fight scene of all time, which is just kind of a weird reference or a weird name to pop in there with his opinion, but it is his opinion. But this is a two-headed beast, and we can either start with the fight, or I guess we can go to the stuff that leads to the fight. So my take on this episode is that this is the episode that is best described by the Tool song Schism, because it's all about the schism between people and the lack of communication and how they're different from each other. Cold silence has a tendency to atrophy any sense of compassion between supposed lovers, which fits most with Ellsworth and Alma. But I think everyone in this, it's Al and Dan can't talk to each other. Alma and Ellsworth can't talk to each other. Alma and Trixie can't talk to each other. Hearst and Turner can't talk to each other about their feelings. Farnham and the Gem Gang don't talk to each other anymore about their feelings. The Livery 2 and Steve can't talk about what they're actually thinking. And Dan and Johnny can't connect about what they're feeling. So that's my take on the episode, is that basically the theme that they're playing with in this one is that people are unable to communicate directly with each other, and it causes a lot of stress, to say the least, between people.
Well, I guess that argues for me showing Captain Cuntface how goddamn afraid I am.
It wasn't after talk between you and Turner.
Hearst was there when Turner said it, and Hearst I asked, did he want it brought back to you? Hearst says to me, I guess so.
Guess so don't sound like Hearst.
I'd said I guess so before. I think he was making small of me.
What is there to consider over, Al? That sea creature Turner called me out.
It's Hearst calling you out. I'm trying to decipher his reason.
Well, me seeing to Turner will not delay your goddamn deciphering.
Can you shut up now, Dan, that you fucking couldn't before?
He hurt you. Then he called you like a dog. I had to tell him to fuck himself.
Even as I forbore till I could see to my fucking arrangements.
Think they'll get seen to by the Snows.
Yeah, I really like this one. I actually wanted to start with Hostetler because I was very disappointed by that, and I don't mean like disappointed in
production choice.
Yeah, it was
Shocking.
Man, yeah, fuck that guy, Steve.
Steve. Well, he did his thing again of he gets very close to the finish line and he can't help but fuck everything up at the
I know,
very end.
and it's so great because like every single person on the show feels the exact same way as the people watching it, which is the people watching the show, which is just like, Steve, for once in your life, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And just take the W and don't fucking complain about it. It's I was very disappointed that it led to Hostetler killing himself because it's, on the one hand, you know, how much shitty racism can one person take in their whole life?
Yep.
On the other hand, it's like, man, don't let this fucking asshole put you over the edge. I don't know. I found it very, very sad.
Yeah, it is sad. It's and it is kind of the opposite of what, you know, it's coming back to Deadwood's theme about perseverance, really, in the face of things. And that's probably what's most frustrating about it, is because Hostetler gives into Steve, not without good reason or anything like that. I think that almost the more frustrating thing is that while people dislike Steve and don't want to put up with him, he's not openly chastised to the level that you'd kind of expect him to be. Like, because I can't remember the guys, the bartender at number 10 or number whatever that character's name is. Once my mind is clear, I'll remember. But he goes occasionally against Steve, and Steve never really learns his lesson or never really he never really internalizes what people are saying to him. In this scene, it's the one where he's washing himself at the wash bin after he gets the spittoon poured on him. And he's kind of being lectured about like he needs to just get his life together and get it on track and just accept the way the things are going to go and look on the bright side, sort of. And Steve can never do that. And he just relentlessly brings Hostetler down to this point of, it's mostly frustrating that Hostetler could have just kind of walked away, but it gets stuck on this board situation that they can't find the board. And then fittingly, in a nice touch, when they find the board, it's been erased anyway because it never mattered in the first place. They're just searching for this weird thing because Steve has a conspiracy theory that things are going to go wrong for him if someone finds the board. Weirdly, no one asks what is on the board that you want to find badly. But yeah, that's.
I know.
That's
I was surprised Bullock was never like, "Why? Who cares? What is this thing we're looking for?"
And that's what's so frustrating about it to me, or so sad, I suppose.
This is the board. For Christ's sake, what difference does the rest of it make?
I don't know. It's the actual board. There's no more fucking writing on it. Shall I accept myself as satisfied, only for Hostetler once escaped to send the real fucking board back from Cheyenne while he's laughing up his lion sleeve? For Bullock to open the package and humiliate me. Or for the fucking bank woman to humiliate me with the true fucking board. Or to revoke my fucking security on my fucking loan. Or whatever your fucked up plan is to make me a fucking cunt. I will not be called a fucking liar. I didn't live my life for that.
Yeah, fuck you, Steve. We're leaving. Talk stupid to our fucking dust.
Yeah, I think it's frustrating too because like I think everybody knows someone like Steve. Steve is the kind of guy who complains about the world fucking him and does not recognize how many people are actually helping him.
Yeah.
And so just to see him constantly complain and constantly whine and constantly, just be an asshole and not be at all cognizant of how much help he is actually getting and that the biggest person hurting him is himself is just so fucking frustrating to watch.
Yeah. And also, again, I think I love. I think the actor's name is Michael Haney. I think I love his performance as Steve. I've really come to like the character of Steve in terms of being a character on the show this season. Is maybe because I've seen him a lot before this, and he becomes maybe less irritating the more that you see him because you know what's coming with him. But I think his performance and his writing is really terrific. I think he's got a great energy for Steve. He's constantly yelling and constantly just sort of at the end of his rope, and everyone else has to deal with it and sort of hope that he goes away or shuts up or something happens to him, but never does.
Yeah, he's constantly at the end of his rope, but he doesn't have to be.
Yeah, nothing. He came close.
It's just, I was very upset by that. More upset by that than the eye explosion.
Yeah. It's one. I think the review mentions that they're kind of similar scenes in that there's not violence in one, but it's sort of stand-ins for other people coming to a head. Really, where it's. Turner and Dan represent Al and Hearst coming together in kind of violence, and Hostetler and the Steve difficulties represent something else, but it's not the physical violence that you're going to expect from it. But that's what the fight represents. So I mean, the fight's the big centerpiece of it. It happens exactly in like the middle of the episode. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts about it?
I was hoping at one point Dan would grab Captain and say, "Put the fucking glasses on," because it reminded me a lot of the fight from They Live, except also with less eye explosion. Yes. I really liked the fight. I thought it was really great. It was probably one of the most realistic fights I've ever seen in a TV show.
Yeah,
because it was just gripping and rolling and grunting and like
you son of a bitch.
Small rabbit punches.
Yeah, little kicks when they're on the ground is my favorite. After they break through like the butcher stand, Dana's laying on Turner and Turner's just kind of giving him like light knees into the stomach. I thought that was funny. Milch had given Minahan, Watson, Brown, and Graff 3 instructions. Number 1, I want everything to be completely realistic. I don't want any big fucking cowboy roundhouses flying through plate glass. None of that cliche bullshit. Number 2, every time the audience thinks it's going to end, I want it to escalate. I want the audience not to be able to draw their fucking breath for 5 minutes. And number 3, I wanted something I've never seen before. You have 3 days to make this. And obviously did. And so it was basically, they really just kind of worked together through it, choreographed it. And it was kept secret from even the participants who was going to die at the end of the fight until the day of shooting. So, did you ever think that there was any doubt about who was going to die? I think they filmed it well enough where I think they focus on Al lowering his head towards the end of it when Dan is getting drowned in the puddle, and I remember originally thinking that was the end of Dan the first time I saw the show. I thought that Turner was going to win because I think narratively it almost makes a little bit more sense for Dan to lose that fight in a more traditional show, I think.
Yeah, I actually wasn't thinking it there. I was thinking it when he started smacking his head on the rock, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I thought, especially, it's actually a fairly poetic way for Dan to go out, given...
Yeah, that he does that. That's his move.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, yeah. I wasn't sure. I had a feeling Dan was... I honestly wasn't sure either of them was going to die, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
I guess once I saw that they were just like fist fighting, I kind of thought, oh, maybe this isn't going to be a fight to the death. Maybe this is just going to be a fight till they both kind of pass out or whatever. Similar to the Bullock and Swearingen fight.
Right, yeah. In season 2.
Yeah, but I was... I thought it was really good. I found it odd from a strategy standpoint, and I say this as someone who's never been in a fight, really, why Dan would lube up his whole body and then put his shirt back on.
Yeah. I was wondering that too. I guess it's just to prevent your clothes from cutting you. Maybe is the reason to do that. I wasn't exactly sure. I would never think to lube myself up before a fight anyway.
Yeah, they can't get a grip on you.
I guess that's true.
Keep your shirt on. Then grab a shirt. They talk about his hair. He's got long hair. Grab that hair real easy. That's why boxers always put Vaseline on their face.
Because that makes sense because like the glove hitting you needs to glide off of you as it hits you, and it can't just tear your skin that way. I mean, it's the same kind of logic, I guess.
It's why I have never figured out why pro wrestlers don't fuck up more, because they are so lubed up
so slippery.
With like baby oil and self tanner and shit or whatever the hell else they're putting on their bodies to make them look the way that they do.
Yeah.
I don't know why they just don't.
Everyone's just slipping all the way down,
bounce off into the outer space.
Yeah. A lot of accidents coming down the ramp into the ring, I think. Did the fight to me is what I think about while I'm watching it is that like we've come a long way in our combat, I suppose. Like if there was just anyone had taken like one judo or jiu-jitsu training course, I think might have been able to actually accomplish something against those two until the stick comes out and you get whacked with the stick.
I think what you're forgetting though is that is the way 90% of people would still fight each other.
It is, yeah. It's very yeah, it's really, I guess all I'm saying is it's the argument or the proof of like why just like ground grappling is so vital, just because all fights kind of end up like this with two guys rolling around on each other.
Yeah, very, very rarely do fights
stays a
just
boxing
end up
match.
as like boxing matches. Yeah.
It goes down quick. Yeah, I like the fight. I like the. I think it's a neat, realistic, weird fight that's like super clumsy and silly. The clumsiness is kind of a Deadwood trait to all the fights with the Swearingen and Bullock fight scene in the second season. They fall off the porch, as part of it. Like that's just
I love that stuff.
That's the extent of it. And this one is pretty much the same thing with just a little bit more stunt work in it. I guess Alan Graff is basically he's a stunt coordinator. Is his job. He was
nice.
He was on like the 1972 USC undefeated football team for college or something. He was an offensive lineman for that.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
He's actually, I think they film him to be bigger. He's only 6'2". I say only 6'2", but he's filmed as if he's supposed to be massive, but he's not that big of a guy outside of that.
I never really thought that he was presented as abnormally huge.
Yeah.
But they got that, Hearst has that line where he's like, you remember that big guy? And he's like, it was big to you. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, yeah, he's a big dude, but
for you.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. He's certainly bigger than Dan Dority. I guess what's most surprising is that Earl Brown, I guess, is smaller than I think he is, because when they're together, the 6'2" actor dwarfs Dan Dority. So maybe Dan's just not as tall as I think he is.
Yeah. The captain, what's his name?
Captain Turner.
Turner's a beefy boy.
Yes. Yeah.
And
he's a lineman.
To steal
definitely.
another line from wrestling, this was the perfect encapsulation of big, meaty men slapping meat.
Yeah.
It's not lacking for brass. Come scare me in the thoroughfare. Star City, Captain. You remember the man's name?
Leonard.
That was a fight.
Not how I remember.
As an object lesson to every man watching. For not much fight, it did not end quickly, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. Do you understand me?
Yes, I understand.
Well, that's what I want to see. That's what
they go right
they go right through
the butcher thing. Yeah.
He knocks it down. He does not beat him with the leg of
I
ram.
was expecting. Yeah, I was. You got to take that and you got to beat the shit out of him with that piece of meat.
No, they don't do to that. But Dan comes out worse the wear. There's a lot of wondering about whether or not what it was all for. I think that one of the more interesting aspects of it is Hearst's reaction to it and his pre-reaction. You can tell me how you feel. Hearst to me seemed... This is an interesting thing that they did with Hearst, which is that it's the most humanizing thing they've done for him, which is to have... someone that I wouldn't even know if he would consider that person to be a friend dies. Like, I don't know if Hearst would consider him a friend before this had all happened, but he feels bad about it. And before the fight happens, he strikes me as clearly concerned that Turner might not win the fight. When he's talking to him, when Turner's doing like calisthenics and like stretching in the room before the fight. And Hearst brings up that previous fight that happened, and he said that it wasn't much of a fight, but you dragged it out to make sure that everyone in town knew what we were saying by doing it. But he seems very nervous about it. He's not approaching it with a lot of confidence. And then after Turner dies, Hearst is obviously distressed by it and goes out drinking and gets drunk. And seems like he's trying to make a friend with the Bella Union bartender, which I think is a funny scene.
Yes.
But
you
it's a weird
are also
thing.
big.
Yes,
I need a big man.
He's got long hair though. Hearst likes a more clean cut look to his gentleman officers. What'd you think about Hearst's reaction and Dan's reaction? All the reactions, Al and Dan, the father-son relationship that can't admit that they love each other type thing. What'd you think of all this?
Yeah, I thought the Dan stuff was really interesting. It's the scene with Al afterwards where he kind of explains to Johnny the difference between beating someone in a fair fight and basically sneaking up on them, and
assassinating someone. Yeah.
was really interesting because I always kind of thought it would be the other way around.
Yes,
because if you beat someone in a fair fight, I feel like you're fighting for your life. Maybe that's part of it, is the fact that you yourself are fighting for your life.
You're in
so
danger
in
a way, in a way that is not previous. I guess Al's point is that it's the match point argument, the Woody Allen movie. Like, it could have gone either way after the ball hits the net.
Well, I'll tell you, I think I've said before, I've watched a lot of movies, a lot of horror movies, a lot of violent movies. The thing that sticks in my mind as like one of the most horrifying scenes I've ever watched is Adam Goldberg's death in Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, the slow knife.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Like every few months, it just like pops into my head and a shiver goes up my spine. It's just like it's that kind of thing where it's like you get to a point where it's like it's you or him, and you realize, oh shit, it's not going to be me.
Yeah, I'm on the bottom. And that's clearly what Dan is going through, and Johnny can't understand it when they have the scene where Dan doesn't want to see the doc or anything like that. He doesn't want to see any of the girls. He is just in a place where Johnny can't really connect to him. Al seems to be able to connect to him, but the distance between the two is that Al won't exactly be the one who's going to go down there and say anything to him about it. It's kind of the classic masculine thing, I guess, of just being left alone to deal with it, and they're going to deal with it as best they can.
You know what he needs to do? He needs to use a woman's breast like a ship's announcement beacon, like we all do in our worst moments to cheer us all up.
Mr. T, brief idle time, harmless whiling away.
I'm considering Khan. Began the swear engines, decided an underling will represent him in certain of our mutual transaction. Would it be my seemly tactic to do likewise? I'd need to know my man had discipline, appetites, and fucking harness and the like.
Well, what this is, sir, yesterday I occasioned to fuck a woman after a considerable period of abstention. And that seems now to have thrown me unawares into a fucking spasm of sex interest, which I fucking pray will be brief.
Well, I believe I'll defer enlisting you in this other aspect.
Prudent, sir. Till I get well on the other fucking side.
I thought
so fucking weird, man.
I deeply connected with the concept of that scene. Not that what was going on, but I just thought that was such a great scene about where Khan's like, I had sex for the first time in a long time, and now it's all I can think about. Which I feel is that's just like that's such a true to life thing that I don't think I've never seen another show or anything like bring that up in such a kind of obvious way as that, but I thought it was fascinating. And I also just like Powers Booth's Si's reaction to the whole thing. He's like, I'm gonna look for someone else.
Yeah. I just love how matter-of-factly he tells them. He's like, Si, I have to tell you, I've fucked a woman for the first time after a prolonged period of abstinence.
He's like, I'm overcome with like sex fever or something like that. He just says
the way he says it. I can't remember exactly. He says something like, I had the chance to fuck a woman or something.
Yeah, he had the occasion. The occasion.
The occasion. Yeah. That's what it is. Yes.
But I really like that scene. I think that's it's just one of the great Deadwood. Like it's nothing for even the episode or the plot of anything. It's just a throwaway scene that's very funny and very insightful and weird. Yeah.
I don't want to kink shame or anything, but it's weird.
I thought that was the theater actress, but it's not.
Oh, it's not?
No, I think it's because I think it's one of Si's whores.
Oh,
yeah.
I guess that would make sense.
Yeah, because she's in Si's the Bella Union. So,
yeah.
What
is he doing? Like what
with the talking into her breast?
Yeah, like he's shouting out like ship commands.
Yeah.
Is it because her boobs are big and they float and they're like boats?
Little boats. I don't know.
But the way it's like he's squeezing it and talking into it like it's a
microphone.
Like it's
yeah.
Which would, don't exist at this time. But
no, would they have the little thing that you could have on kids' playgrounds, which is like it's just a like a big vuvuzela or something that you're talking into?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I know ships do have those things. I don't know how far those go back. But maybe
vuvuzelas.
Anybody who shares this proclivity, please let us know what he's doing.
Let us know what Khan is up to. But Si, is this the first episode where Si has been up and walking around? He mentions that he's like back on his feet.
He goes to the meeting at Hearst's
Oh, that's right. He did that last time. Yeah. So he's been up. This is the first time when he's dealing with Leon, I think it's the first time he has a line where he's like, now that I'm back on my feet, maybe I should prove that I'm back on business by killing you. Something like that.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, outside of that, there's the Alma and Ellsworth story, which I really like, which is I think a really great scene that's well acted between the two of them, which is Alma's intoxication is due to the fact that it's kind of unclear. It's another thing I like about Deadwood is that it's sometimes extremely difficult to peg why characters are doing something. It's not that it doesn't make sense, but the show will never state what's going on. Like it's kind of literalized in this episode through the Alma thing of getting high, but also more explicitly through when Al cannot understand why Hearst is setting this fight up to happen.
Yeah, I really like that stuff too. And the show never will say anything. So you're kind of just left to wonder why Hearst would do something like that. And, at least the repercussions for Al, which is that Al feels like he's in over his head against Hearst, that he can't understand what they can't get on the same wavelength, and that's kind of makes Al nervous. But you're also just not really exposed to why Hearst would do such a thing. And it's the same thing with Alma in this as to why she's returned to laudanum. You can make the assumption it's because she's unhappy in her marriage and like she's entering this sort of depressive state, and she's an addict who's getting over it, but it's never made explicit. Yeah, I think as I said on a previous episode, I'm a little disappointed that they're doing that with her because it feels fairly reductive. Like we had talked about, it feels like they're kind of setting some of these characters back in certain ways.
Yeah, resetting.
But at the same time, it is very realistic for her to go. I mean, it's more realistic for her to go back to laudanum than it is for her to kick laudanum in the first season and just be done with it.
Yeah. And they've given her new problems, which are to sort of inspire.
She had a miscarriage basically, and
a loveless marriage.
She's married. The thing that I was most interested in is
abortion, I suppose, rather than an intentional miscarriage. I guess a pretty euphemistic.
Abortion. Which, yes,
I like that little touch.
6 of 1.
She moves the mirror, which I thought was a great touch.
She moves the mirror
in her scene where when she drinks the laudanum before she goes and tries to hit on Ellsworth. Mm-hmm. She adjusts the mirror away from the bed because the mirror was used during the abortion technique.
Yeah, interesting. But yeah, it occurred to me watching the way the scene played out that they really don't give you any indication whether or not they've ever consummated their marriage.
Yeah.
And so to see Ellsworth, it was a little strange. I wasn't sure where they were going with it, because to see Ellsworth like actively timid about it was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Because there had been no indication that like they had any attempt or for that matter, no attempt at a physical relationship.
Yeah.
But then once they do, in the hallway there, once she does kiss him and he sees that she's all fucked up, I was like, that's good. I like the way that, because Ellsworth is just like, I feel like the thing with Ellsworth is Alma is predisposed to think that there's something shitty about him, mm-hmm. and he keeps acting very honorably when it comes to her.
I'll make some arrangement.
What do you mean?
For my things and the like. Arrange to collect my things. Will you have me bring the little one back?
I'll collect Sophia.
Don't forget.
My connection with Ellsworth, I think, is that Ellsworth is, for such a solid stand-up person as he's kind of proven himself to be, he's basically emasculated at every opportunity. That
yes.
Like not intentionally, but like he's only in this marriage because of the Bullock's kid, right? So it's like he's due from that. So he's basically cucked from that point of view. Like that's one way of looking at it. Is like he couldn't even impregnate the wife, and he has to like take responsibility for the kid that won't make it around, obviously. But the other thing is that in the loveless marriage, like he's not even. She has to get high to fuck him. You know, and like that's emasculating. Yeah. It's like he's not even desirable enough where she can just do it without the aid of some kind of intoxicant. He's basically like the second half of a business partner that has no say in any of the money because it's not really his money that he married into. He takes care of, not that there's anything wrong with, but like in the context of the time, he takes care of Sophia a lot, which is not traditionally what the male would be doing at this time period. So that I like that scene because I think it's probably the most emotionally wrenching of the scenes in the episode, and I think the actors just do a really great job. I like Ellsworth being uncomfortable with her straightening his hair. I like his disappointment at the end of it, and I really like he has a couple lines that end it, which is that he says, "Will you have me?" and then he pauses, and then says, "Pick up Sophia," which is a nice little play on words, and then when Alma says that, "I'll go do it," he says, "Don't forget," which is I always take as a little bit of a dig about addicts' poor memory when it comes to remembering responsibilities for themselves. But yeah, I like it.
Got to write it on the bathroom mirror like I do at our house.
That's right. Tattoo it to yourself.
I forget.
Just tattoo it across your chest. Pick up Sophia.
Remember Sammy Jenkins. You left him at the library. He needs to be picked up.
That's a good trivia question. I wouldn't be able to remember Sammy's name from Memento.
I do not know how I pulled that out of thin air.
Nice job.
I think haven't seen that movie in like 20 years.
Well, I mean, because the Tobolowsky is the Deadwood, obviously.
Oh yeah, maybe it's come up on the show. Yeah. You know, it's fun. This is completely unrelated.
Yep.
I was just thinking of names in movies. In Fight Club, Meatloaf's character, his name is Robert Paulson.
I guess yes.
His name is Robert Paulson. Yep. That's what they say after he gets killed. Robert Paulson, also the name of a famous voiceover actor who you would probably know from many different things. He's the voice of Pinky and Pinky and the Brain.
Yep.
And a bunch of other stuff. And I just always thought it was funny that his name is Robert Paulson. That was a completely unnecessary and probably uninteresting tangent we just went on there. But,
what's his nickname in Fight Club? Is it like Sweet Tits or something?
Something tits.
Something tits.
Bitch tits.
Bitch tits. That's right. Yeah. I haven't seen Fight Club in a long time.
Yeah, I've been interested to revisit that one because I think I kind of went on the critical roller coaster that a lot of people went on with that movie.
Yeah, well, there's kind of a pop culture roller coaster of reception towards it.
Yeah, because when I watched it when I was younger, I was like, this movie's fucking great. And then there was a certain point where I hadn't watched it, and I was like, wait a minute. Fight Club, that's, I don't know, the stuff that movie is espousing is not exactly something that you should aspire to the way that some people seem to. And then I did watch it again, and I was like, oh, this is taking the piss out of all this stuff.
Yeah, it's satirical, right? That's always that's what I never really stood about the critical flip-flopping on that, is that I understand young kids not really getting the satire, but it's definitely satire. You know?
Yeah. I think a lot of that stuff is from people who are either coming at it in bad faith or just frankly just haven't watched it.
Maybe. Do you have any movies that I have two that stick out to me that are like that all the time? Or it's like, I guess I would define them as movies that I don't want to hear about your modern zeitgeisty take on it.
Sure.
Which is American Beauty is one, and Chasing Amy is the other one. Those are my two.
Good.
I really like both movies, and I can understand like the sort of modern criticism of them, but I think it's like a reach to like I just don't. I don't care about the criticism. Like I don't care about viewing the movies through that lens of how these things are now perceived.
I don't remember, honestly, either of them well enough to know what the modern critical. I can take a guess at Chasing Amy based on the content, what it's about, but What briefly, you don't have to go into it. What is on American Beauty? What's the hot take on American Beauty?
Basically that like he is the sort of like stereotypical white guy who doesn't recognize what he's got and is kind of like moping, and he has all the privilege that allows him to like abandon his job and stuff like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like he's too much of a normal white male to feel that he's the hero of this situation, and like that like it's a poor reflection on society at large, is basically that he's kind of a whiny guy is like the modern criticism of it. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it's been so long since I've seen it. I don't honestly remember. I get into arguments about RoboCop more frequently than I thought I ever would.
Yeah, sure. Suffers from the satire problem.
Yeah, the thing with I know we've talked about this before, either here or on another show, but the mark of a good satire is something that takes a critical eye to a certain thing, but is also simultaneously the thing it is critiquing.
Yeah.
And RoboCop is just a perfect example of that, where, yes, it is a big, dumb sci-fi action movie about a guy who turns into a robotic cop.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also about a lot of other stuff and taking, it's very undercutting of that whole genre and whole approach. And,
yeah.
And I remember if you ever run into myself or Sean at a convention, you can ask us about this. But when we were at the apprenticeship 10 years ago, we had watched some movies, and I was like, oh, we should watch RoboCop. And it did not go over well with anybody, and I was very surprised.
Yeah.
And there was one person in the group who left after maybe 15 minutes and was very much not into it. And it's, it's not everybody's cup of tea. I know that now. Yeah. But like, we got into started arguments about it, and I was just kind of like, I can't have this conversation with you because you didn't watch the movie. You watched 15 minutes of it and then you left. We can't have this conversation because you didn't watch the movie.
Minute 16 is when it really kicks into gear, and you were not.
Yeah.
No,
it was right up to about the part where the guy gets shot in the dick. I think she was out.
That's the ending. I mean, because I could see. Because Murphy getting killed in it must be fairly early too. I don't remember exactly.
It is, yeah. I was coming off the. We had watched Terminator 2, and that went over really big. Yeah. She had never seen that before, and I was like, oh well, what's the next thing kind of in the same wavelength? And my first thought was RoboCop.
Of course it was. Yeah, you might have been watching a cooking show, and you're like, you know what, this would go great with RoboCop. Right?
Yeah, I mean that's my first option for everything.
You gotta have the DVD just holstered.
I have Alex Murphy parentheses RoboCop as my emergency contact on my insurance form with the doctor.
Amy, my wife Amy, just watched. We watched the first two Terminators recently, and she had never seen them before. She really loved them actually, which was kind of like charming. It's rare that you see like a sort of what I would consider to be like a really classic movie that someone has never seen for the first time. But she enjoyed it.
Terminator and Terminator 2, Terminator 2 especially, but the first two Terminator movies are kind of untouchable. Like they are. Yeah. Pretty unassailable as far they work every time.
Yeah.
The 30 years later, 40 years later works. It just works.
Yes. The first one is simpler than I remember.
Oh, it's basically like a slasher movie essentially.
Yeah, it's really pretty simple. It's short and simple, and there's not a lot of stuff to it. The second one is definitely obviously a more fulfilling movie and about more, but they're both still effective. I guess back to Deadwood.
Anyway, sorry for that digression.
The one of my favorite schism scenes in this one is when Farnham talks to the Gem Gang and he talks to Al about it. I guess I had never really put together or really noticed until just rewatching it here, or I'd forgotten about it or something. This is kind of the explanation for why Farnham has been living in the walls of his hotel, away from everybody. It's because no one trusts him anymore after he sold the hotel to Hearst. And I, as far as I can remember, this is the first scene that overtly touches on that. And I don't know if I'd say I feel bad for Farnham, but he's the most sympathetic that I've ever seen him at this point, is especially when Al tells him that he doesn't want his help with anything. He's just like, no, don't bother. And Farnham has to leave the office. I thought it was effective, and I thought there were nice little scenes and sequences between the two of them.
Hearst organizes violence between his man and Dority.
Does he?
Orchestrates combat between them, mutilates me, plants that organizer's body like a flag in the fucking thoroughfare.
That last is fresh news.
Makes of me and Tolliver a two-headed beast. To savage what might be healthy born out of the fucking election and gnaw its own privates off ours. Plans keep coming to the cocksucker, but their final sum is this. But for what brings income to him, break what he can, what he can't. Set those parts against themselves to weaken.
Scoundrel! Hearst.
The wise. What fucking confounds me? What's in his head I cannot fucking find in mine. Don't suppose you talk to the captain?
Hails and farewells, but he never replies.
Or the cook?
The negress and I are not intimate.
All right, E.B.
May I ask your plans out?
No.
Only to further their achievement.
No.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, he doesn't want his help, but at the same time, he does talk to him. You know,
he does.
Nobody else is going up there, and then Farnham goes in, and he actually does tell him about. Is Farnham the one that he says like, I don't know what Hearst is doing?
Yeah, well,
or he comes out right after that, right?
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
Everybody, yeah.
Al is basically just trying to get any bit of information from Farnham about what's going on over in Hearst's worlds, and Farnham doesn't really know anything because he says like he hails and says farewell to Captain Turner, but he never says anything back to him. It's just kind of a tragedy like that. But and then Al just gives up on him after a certain point because he can't trust him to do anything.
Yeah, the EB stuff is. I like that scene because saying that now, I feel like he hasn't had a ton of interaction with a lot of the characters. It's been him and Richardson a lot of the time.
Yeah. He's not friends with them anymore, I guess.
Yeah.
Or he has that heartbreaking thing with Dan where he's like, I thought we were hombres or something. He's like, we're never hombres, EB. And he said, forgive me for thinking about you the way that I thought you felt about me or something.
Yeah, outside of the election, he hasn't really crossed over much with everybody else.
Yeah, that's true.
I like that scene. I especially liked it because after his reception from everybody else when he gets there, once he leaves Al's office, he says something like "I'm glad I could be of such help," or something that's supposed to make him look cool or look more important than the people downstairs, which was good. But yeah, I mean, he did it to himself. He's a slimy piece of shit.
Yeah. He was sort of forced into selling, but it was his own greed at the same point.
He does do right by Bullock.
Yes, he
when
writes
Bullock
down
comes
the note.
in.
Yep.
Yeah, he does that thing where he's like saying no, but he's shaking his head yes.
Yes.
Kind of.
Yeah, his lips say no, but his pen says yes. The
lips say no.
So one
but his
scene,
pen is saying Bella Union.
He's in the Pen 15 Club. I think we're far enough into this now that we can talk about it. So the theater troupe also has a sequence in this episode. If you haven't guessed yet, the theater troupe is the plot line that I've been saying that doesn't do anything in season 3.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel fairly comfortable at this point because we're halfway through the season of saying that now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what you think about the theater troupe, but I'm interested to hear it. But hopefully, I mean, it's not really spoilers, but like what they do for the rest of the season is basically what they've been doing so far. So I'm just I guess I'm kind of letting you know about that and just maybe putting a little bit of tint on how you're going to view it. But I felt that it's like worth bringing up at this point.
Costumes, Countess, will you chair?
Yeah.
Props and scenery. Chair?
Only if you serve a second.
I'm so sorry. His costume's taken.
Are they performing now?
Quiet. Civic relations. I'd appoint myself, without objection.
Will we continue as if all among us are well, when one so plainly is not?
And what committee, Bellegarde, to address the old man's mortal illness would you have us fucking form?
No committee.
Committees is the task before us.
No business as usual.
Business and tasks is what we'll have, just as you are tardy and ginger on your bum for the usual fucking reasons, despite your deep personal grief.
Yeah, I could kind of go either way on it, frankly, because on the one hand, yes, it doesn't feel like they've got much of a plan here, and they're introducing a new.
Well, they do have a plan. They're slowly putting it together to build like their theater.
Sure,
trope. Yeah.
no,
I
mean,
slow. Yeah,
I meant like the production doesn't seem to have much of a plan.
Yeah.
They introduce these new characters, one of whom is like an invalid and knows Jack in a way that I don't give a shit about and probably never will.
Yeah.
The other of whom I'm actually happy to see because I know him. He's
the gay guy, the new gay guy.
Yeah, he plays Eddie Kasperzak in the 1990 version of It.
Oh, okay.
As well as a few other things. Famous Bihar movie called Fade to Black. He's very good in that. And I mean, also, I would watch Brian Cox read the phone book.
Yeah, he's the saving grace of it. I think.
It's tough to really be super like when you have someone like Brian Cox anchoring your nonsense. I find it much more easy to just kind of bask in than as much as Bosch and Sarah Paulson are good actors.
Yeah,
I didn't relish watching them on the screen talking about Mrs. Inrenhausen's past. You know.
Yeah. My problem with the theater troupe is that I just don't think that their internal plot is interesting enough. Like,
yeah. What are they up to? Like, who?
They're just like they're slowly putting together their theater. You know, it's like they're
cool.
In this one, they're basically discussing like all the subcommittees that they're going to be to get their troupe up and running. But it's not.
Right.
It was a little better when Jack was talking to like. Joni about buying the place. There was a little bit of like friction there that he had to work through, but now it's very theatery people talking in extremely flowery, milky dialogue to each other about something that I don't find to be thematically interesting. Really, like it's just I don't feel like you're settled in with those characters in a way that you feel like there's any kind of like sympathy or pathos for them or anything. They don't even really have a problem at this point. So
right, yeah,
it's tough when, as you're saying, the only thing you have to ride on is that Brian Cox is delivering a lot of the dialogue, and that's very good. But it's ultimately pretty hollow at this point.
Yeah, I would say it's the most egregious example of Deadwood being a show where you're just watching people hanging out.
Yeah,
because like. I don't know about this invalid character, but the scene where they're doing the subcommittees is just like a slapstick comedy scene.
Yeah, it's a comedy. Yeah,
where they're calling out these things, and then the stereotypical gay character shows up, and he can't sit down because his ass hurts and get fucked. It's it's like all right, whatever, sure. Like there's no, it just feels like a goof 'em up scene.
Yes. With like a commentary on bureaucracy or like
sure.
My read on it is that it's kind of like the milk poking fun at the sort of like floweriness of like producer titles and stuff on TV shows. It's like everyone's got a little role. Everyone's a co-producer or whatever, or like a executive staff writer and stuff like that. And ultimately, it's all just a bunch of people doing the same thing and working together to make this TV show. But you live and die on these little credits that you're able to get.
Hey, I didn't go to gaffer school for 9 years to be called Mr. Boy. It's Best Boy to you, sir.
Make sure you have a strong grip.
Yeah, it's I wish there was something more to grasp onto. Like maybe they're trying to cheat Joni or something. So anything. It doesn't really. So okay, I could see it being good. If you want to use that word, if the season ends with like the opening of the theater and it's some sort of cathartic thing,
right. Yeah,
where it's like there's a threshold crossing for the town, like they've kind of done the past few seasons.
Yep.
Like then I can be like, okay, sure, they were building
sort
something,
of like a civilizational development.
Yeah,
in some ways,
yeah, that's fine. But I'm going to assume that's probably not what happens.
Well, even if it is, you're spending a lot of time.
Yeah,
treading water with them, to get to that point. And I think
Yes.
that's it does share a lot with the Paulson scene in that it shares a little and it's different in a lot of ways. So like the Paulson stuff was weird because it was a lot of plotting that was disconnected from anything that you were seeing. And this one is no plotting, but I like the character interactions more. Although it's I guess it just really just goes to show that even on a great hangout show like this, the characters kind of need something to talk about. They can't just sit there and talk about nonsense for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I was really thrown off by the invalid character.
Sure.
Because it's just, I don't know. I feel like it would be more interesting if it was just a troupe of weirdo actors who showed up instead of this guy who Jack has some.
I don't know if he's the
long-standing
financer
connection
or
with
something.
Yeah,
I'm actually unclear as to what his role is. Jack refers to himself as his producer, but I don't know. I don't know what the relationship is. But
yeah, I don't know. I'm not expecting much from it.
Yep. Any other sequences here? Trixie and Saul have a short little scene where she's sneaking through the wall with each other, but nothing else goes on there.
I really liked before the fight when Johnny was saying if things go wrong, hit the deck and I'll blow the guy's head off.
Yeah.
I really liked Dan's response of things going wrong is not the end of the fucking world.
Yeah.
Or there's not the end of things. I don't know why, but that was like a really good philosophical moment from Dan.
Yeah.
Which obviously plays
Honor.
into the fight.
Yeah.
The way it does.
Yeah, honor means something. It comes back to the similar kind of idea of like the world ends when you're dead. His quote is "Going wrong is not the end of fucking things."
Yeah.
I like that. Because obviously it's kind of it's showing the thematic passing down of ideology from Al to Dan that way in the father-son relationship. Dan has absorbed a lot from Al, and like it's even kind of. I really enjoy the scene where when they're trying to figure out what Hearst's game is in the gym after Silas comes back from his meeting with Hearst. I think that's a great little Deadwood scene because it mixes all these different moments. Like it starts with the comedy of them saying, like Silas says, like Hearst says, "I guess so," and Swearingen goes like, "Doesn't sound like Hearst to say I guess so," and then Silas goes like, "Well, I think he was making fun of me because I said it 5 minutes before that." And then Al can't put together what the game is, but then it gets into more about not being able to figure out the game, and then it's into just like Dan basically opening his heart about like you can't let him talk to you that way, Dad. Like you can't be. If Hearst talks to Swearingen that way, we can't let it stand for that because it just like it looks bad on the family type of argument that he wants to take. And there's this whole delaying about whether or not they're going to take action. Bullock comes in and Bullock is not the one who's not going to, he's got a little bit of an errand to run, he says, and then he's going to go back to fucking up Hearst after that. But I just think it's a great little scene because it has so many things pouring into it and then coming out in different directions.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
I guess the final thing is Bullock arrests Hearst at the end of the episode.
The sheriff joins us.
Whiskey.
Sheriff recently put me on notice he is vigilant of my possible transgressions.
You sound drunk to me.
Whom are you addressing?
You. You sound drunk.
Do I? When I say fuck yourself, Sheriff, will you put that down to drunkenness or a high estimate of your athleticism?
Did you just tell me fuck myself?
I think I did. And to shut up, I'll quiet you myself.
You're under arrest.
Fuck you and shut up. Or I will shut you up for good.
Threatening a peace officer. I'm taking you into custody.
Don't be stupid.
Don't you be fucking stupid. Ah! Fuck you.
Probably a top five quote for me from this series, which is when I say go fuck yourself, Sheriff, will you put that down to drunkenness or a high estimate of your own athleticism?
Yeah.
which is a terrific smoking pen line. That's up there with the pickling his prick in the cunt brine of another one, I think. But Hearst is drunk. He's trying to bond with other people. Cy comes in and kind of fucks that up and irritates Hearst. And then Bullock comes in and irritates Hearst even more. Any thoughts on this in general, from performances to where it ended up to what Bullock did to outcomes, et cetera, et cetera? And Bullock is mad because of the Cornishman got killed trying to unionize. Yeah.
I really like that scene previously too, when when Bullock goes into the gem and he's like, "Fuck it, I'm going after Hearst," and they tell him not to, and he's just like, "I have the briefest of other things I need to do,
See to
then
it,
I'm
Bullock.
going after this fucking guy." Yeah, I was I thought it hung well together with the scene with Al and Johnny when Johnny's like, "Well, what are we going to do?" And Al's just like, "Well, we're going to see what happens next."
Yep.
And then seeing him arrest Hearst, Al's like, "Well, there goes 3 or 4 of our options, whatever they might be."
The sheriff eliminates several of our options, which is a good line.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's
in character.
I think it's in character, and I also think it's bringing to the forefront a question that we've kind of batted around to this point, which is why doesn't anybody do something about Hearst?
Yeah.
Like what exactly is stopping Seth from, I mean, he doesn't have a ton of evidence, but he's never really been big on evidence.
No.
What's stopping Seth from doing something? What's stopping Al from doing something? I'm curious to see what the turnout from this is.
Yeah, from his arrest. But it's two losses for Hearst in a single episode. He loses Turner and he gets arrested at the end of
Big
it.
losses too. I mean, it's really his first loss or
Yes.
first losses. Well, outside of the Alma's claim.
Yeah,
But
not getting the claim. Yeah.
Aside from that, yeah, he's been. This is the biggest punch he's taken so far.
Yeah, and I mean, just going on traditional narratives, when your antagonist is punched down in the middle of the season, he probably is going to punch back in the next couple episodes, and we'll see where all that goes. I like that scene. I like Tim Oliphant. He's just not a great Bullock, really. Like Bullock's rage needs to be better portrayed, I think, than the way that it's done.
He goes 0 to 60 way too fast. He's got no.
Yeah,
I think when it's just the rage, he heats up too quickly. Like his best stuff was the stuff after their son died.
Yes, right.
I think, but this stuff where it's just him getting angry, it's just kind of him going.
Yeah, it's like quivering lips, kind of. Yeah. I don't know. I still haven't come up with who a good actor would be to replace this, or how you should more normally play it. But I think he has to come. Well, I don't know. Is this true? Does Bullock have to, or would it be better if Bullock came across more confident in what he was doing, even if he was equally as unhinged and like emotionally prone to do things the way that he does it? Because I know thematically it kind of fits. Like Bullock getting all hot and bothered about this and pulling a gun on Hearst is supposed to represent Bullock's sort of like flighty raginess of not thinking through things effectively. So it's not like I think it's a bad look, but I wish he was less obvious. Like his tells are just terrible.
Yeah.
There's no duplicity to him whatsoever, which is maybe intentional. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you'd need someone who can do more with the eyes.
Yeah,
a little bit more silent acting. Because I think he gives it away, as you're saying. He gives it away too easily.
Yeah.
But I mean, who doesn't in Deadwood, right, guys?
No, that's right. There's a whole industry, a whole cottage industry built around it. But that's why he's so over his head against someone like Hearst, who, even though Bullock technically wins this one, and Hearst is a little bit embarrassed by the end of it. The only reason it's happened is because of Bullock's position. Really, it's like his sheriff position. There's no there was no overthinking or like outdoing or outmaneuvering Hearst there. It was really just like, it was like a petty cop giving you a ticket about some bullshit that he would not normally care unless, the only reason he cares is because he's having a bad day, basically. And you, unfortunately, run into his path.
Yeah, I think you need someone who can do more jawbone acting.
Yep. Little jaw clenching.
Yeah, I remember, I think I was watching The Aviator, the DiCaprio movie.
Yep.
And there's a scene, I think it's that one. It's regardless of the movie, it's DiCaprio, where he's in court, I think, and it's going very poorly, and he's not saying anything, but you can see his temples flaring from the grinding of his teeth. And I was like, that's pretty good. That's a little unfair. It seems like cheating, but it gets the point across pretty well.
Yeah, Bullock needs a little bit more jawbone workouts, I think. Still like the scene. I have to focus on it. I like Hearst just trying to make a friend with somebody in his moment of disappointment. But
yeah, I mean, he's got nobody else, right? I think when you're saying is Captain Turner is Captain Turner his friend? It's like it kind of. I think Hearst is the kind of guy where even if they're not like hanging out together, that's all he's got.
Yeah, he does. He
right?
can't. Hearst can't connect with people. So and it's made explicit through what Hearst said before. It's like he can hang out with, racial slurs for people, or he can hang out with whites who obey his commands, basically. And Turner fits that to a T. So yeah, that's the explanation.
I wish when he was talking to the bartender, what's the bartender's name? Do you remember? That he
Jack
talks
Young.
To
Jack Young.
I wish when he was talking to Jack, he had said, "Jack, that's a mighty fine shirt you got there." And Jack said, he's like, "Well, I don't really care about the design. All I care about is the color." And then they cut back to Hearst, and he's
he
like,
just smiles. just this a freeze frame, and then the credits roll. I really liked Steve's signing bank documents shirt. He was very happy to be doing that. Yeah.
At least he apologized for breaking the pen.
There's he broke the nib. Bullock firing a gun in the middle without warning anybody seemed like it would be potentially a bad idea, but he did it and no one stopped him.
Mm-hmm.
The other funny thing about the bank is I've never heard the term specie. I assume that's what the word for gold, because they say specie or currency, but he took gold. Yeah. Why would you take gold over currency?
That's a good question. Maybe because are they at a point where does America have a national currency yet?
Oh, I guess this is true when they're talking about the banking. Apparently this is all historically, I guess. I don't know enough to speak about it fluently, but like the show references this too. Apparently this was during an era of huge banking crises in the eastern seaboard, and that's what Alma's when she's sort of highly explaining to Merrick about like all the banks that are failing, and out here our local bank is backed by gold. I guess at this point you would probably want to just take the gold because it's guaranteed to be worth value at some point.
Yeah. Too many people shorting the manure stocks.
That's right. Yeah. How did they do stocks back then? I have no idea how that was.
No clue.
I feel like you need a computer to do that, but apparently not. But
you just show up on the floor and you scream like you're at a Taiwanese kickboxing
I know
match.
you wave your papers in the air and something will happen. But I
have
have no idea how they did that.
Anytime I see any, like whether it's a stock thing or especially those movies where there's a fight scene in like a pit in Saigon or whatever.
Right.
How does anybody keep track of anything?
I know.
They're just yelling stuff and throwing money at the one guy who's got like a notebook. Is he really keeping track of what you just gave him? So when your guy gets like punched in the face with the glass stuck to the other guy's glove and loses, you're like, okay, you owe me $1,400. No.
I wrote it down. It's right here. That's true. That does seem to particularly the Muay Thai fight scenes just seem to be people waving dollar bills in the air and no one's taking any kind of record keeping about what's going on.
It looks great. It looks great on film.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know how practically it works though.
Yeah, all the cutout scenes of those guys just waiting in line at the bookie office as they take their bets and then go back to the high energy. Well, we'll be doing, I think we're probably going to do the first episode of Luck as our breathing room before we do the movie again. So
interesting.
We'll probably do the first episode of Luck, which is the Michael Mann and Milch
Oh,
HBO
I didn't
show.
realize that was Mann and Milch.
Yeah, it's Mann and Milch.
Oh boy, the testosterone.
it's pure. And that's what I mean when it's just going to be money waving in the air. And then we'll probably do...
Isn't that famously the show they had to cancel because too many horses died?
Yeah, too many horses died. And apparently those two hated each other too, Milch and Mann. So
not surprising.
Yeah. So they seem like a bad pair because Mann is supposed to be very regimented and technical, and Milch just flies by the seat of his pants. So I can't imagine it worked out well. And then we'll do John from Cincinnati, I think, and then we'll do the Hitman movie, which Oliphant had to do. And then we'll do the Deadwood movie. What was the
We're not going to do Live Free or Die Hard, where he plays the villain?
No, because he took the Hitman movie specifically after Deadwood was canceled to pay for his house, which he had just bought. So he bought a house in season 3 of Deadwood, and then they canceled the show, and he needed to make some money, so he did Hitman. Yeah.
Interesting.
What was my final point here? Did I have a final point about? We talked about Hearst. Talked about the gold. Talked about. No, I guess that's it. Do you have anything else you want to say? Or is that the end of Two-Headed Beast?
I think that's it. I think we covered pretty much everything.
Final thoughts overall?
Good stuff. Yeah, I like this one.
Yeah, I like this one too. I like the third season. I'm being reminded episode by episode that I do like the third season.
For having heard that the third season isn't very good, I think it's a matter of whether or not you are on board with what the show has turned into.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's any less good, but I just think it is just more of the meandering nature of it is kind of baked into the concept at this point.
Yeah. And I think looking back on it, season 2 is probably my least favorite season. I think that they were smart to sort of move away from the overly plottiness that season 2 kind of represents to me, which is like the Yankton politics and things like that. Mm-hmm. It's still kind of here in the third season, but it's not as... The scenes aren't just two people sitting at a table talking about that stuff, and like the dialogue's great and everything in the second season. I like Walcott and things, but I don't think it has the energy of the first and the third seasons, and I like that energy. So.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even immediately pick up that the actor plot was the dead end thing, because I don't think it stands out as much as say the Isringhausen stuff does.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because maybe it's all 2020 hindsight to me. Yeah,
and I also I think it's the Brian Cox factor of it, where it's like, I don't know what he's saying. It sounds great.
Yeah. I brought it up mostly because this was the first episode where I really I didn't feel that they kicked the ball forward at all in what they were doing. You know, the other one he bought the house and stuff, and he met somebody, but this one it's just like, let's hang out and talk to each other.
Well, you can't build a business unless you figure out who's going to take on what roles. It's very important.
Yeah. Do they call it a bordello? They do, right? I think they call it a bordello.
The eye lines must be atrocious.
That was a good joke. I like that one. Thanks, everybody, for listening to This Is Something Pretty. It's a podcast about Deadwood. We just talked about a two-headed beast. You can support the show at patreon.com/thepenskyfile. All the shows are supported at patreon.com/thepenskyfile. If you've made it to this point in the podcast series, and we're done. Maybe we're even done. We're in the future and all the episodes are out and you've listened to them. You can still go to Patreon, sign up for a month, leave a couple bucks, and you can mosey on out of there. Or you can stick around to get more content too, whatever you're up to. Clay, do you have anything you want to say?
Check out Rotten Heart Picture Show. We're covering Video Nasties on Patreon. August was Toby Hooper's The Funhouse. September is going to be a movie I forget. It's possibly Lucio Fulci's Zombie, but I don't think that's it. I can't remember what it is.
There's a lot of them.
And also, we just finished season 2 of Batman Beyond on Badass, so we're going to be doing Return of the Joker pretty soon. And the comic book I've been working on for the last 6 months to a year, Batman White Knight presents Return of the Joker. A Generation Joker is on the shelves. Issue 5 is out now-ish, which features my the first cover I've ever drawn for DC Comics, so that's pretty cool. So check that out if you could find it.
It's got a horse on it.
Yeah.
If you're into Deadwood, it's got a horse on it.
It does. It has a horse on it and a car. So regardless of your preference
for era.
mode of travel, it's got them both.
What's the hardest animal to draw?
Horses are pretty tough.
Yeah.
Horses are
weird looking animals.
Yeah, they work in, much like God, horses work in mysterious ways.
Mm-hmm. Horse walks into a bar, bartender says, "Why the long face?" And that's what you got to draw.
Classic.
I would say sea urchin.
Okay.
I have no idea. That might actually be super easy. Just a bunch of spikes sticking out of something. What the hell else would be a weird
Did you see
animal?
that weird thing that they just discovered at like the bottom of
The
one of
golden
those?
egg?
Is that what it's called? It was like a weird, it looked like a kite.
Oh,
it was this
no.
weird, like gloopy jellyfish looking thing with a big like
string
proboscis that extended down to the bottom of the, and it was like 450 miles down in one of the trenches, not the Mariana Trench, but like one of those big trenches.
Oh no, I didn't see it.
Yeah,
I saw one.
Pretty weird.
They found a golden egg and they weren't sure what animal came from it, but it was like a little gold egg on the bottom of the ocean. Yeah,
cool.
So there's
what
weird
happened?
stuff out there.
What happened? Did one of Gwyneth Paltrow's ships go down?
We can only hope.
Guys, is that still a contemporary reference to make? I don't know what's going on with that.
In 1876, it certainly was. Excuse me. Well, I just felt my throat give out, so I think we're done. Thanks to everybody for listening. Patreon.com/The Penske File. This is something pretty. We are going to be back with the next episode, which, oh no, I put the book down. I have to say it now that I've said it. Hold on, the book is right here. The next episode is called A Rich Find. So that's easy. Thanks everybody for listening. We will see you next time.
What?
Hello.
You fucking work at the bank.
I do now.
Not a noble hello at opening? And regal fucking look by it, closing up a shop?
I'm at the hardware store all day, Trixie.
I'll switch with you. Bank's a Jew's proper province anyways, along with the adult self-deceived.
Our depositors?
The bank's founder and president, chief officer as well, of airheaded smugness and headlong plunges unawares into the fucking abyss.
I don't understand.
You wouldn't. You're too fucking healthy-minded. You'll sit here waiting for me to materialize from a piece of fucking furniture and think the world is normal. Do you want to get fucked or not?
Please.